Hello and welcome back to the Better Humans Project podcast, and I'm your host, Greg Pfeiffer. There's a version of us we show the world, the polished, filtered, on the wall version. And then there's the version we see in the mirror, raw, imperfect, real. In this episode, we explore the tension between those two identities. Why do we create a public image of perfection? What's really going on beneath the surface? And perhaps most importantly, how do we close the gap between who we are and who we present ourselves to be? How do we be our authentic selves? We all carry dual identities. The girl on the wall is curated, controlled, and socially acceptable. The girl in the mirror is flawed, human, and vulnerable. This isn't necessarily hypocrisy, it's human nature. Psychologists often refer to this as a difference between the presented self and the true self. The tension between the two can either be healthy or adaptive or harmful, disconnected. So, why do people create a perfect public image? One is a fear of rejection. At a core level, humans are wired for belonging. If we believe our true selves won't be accepted, we edit, filter, and perform. Two, our social reward system. We live in a world where likes, validation, and attention are currency. Perfection gets rewarded, and authenticity doesn't always. Three, for control. A curated image gives a sense of control over how others perceive us, especially when life feels messy internally. And four, identity construction. Some people aren't hiding, they're trying on identities, figuring out who they are by experimenting with who they present to the world. Several psychological concepts explain this behavior. Impression management, where we consciously or unconsciously shape how others perceive us. Cognitive dissonance, when our public self and private self don't align, it creates internal discomfort. Self-discrepancy theory, the gap between who we are and who we think we should be can lead to anxiety, shame, or low self-worth. When the wall self becomes far too removed from the mirror self, we start to feel like frauds in our own lives. So let's be honest, this isn't happening in a vacuum. Social media promotes highlight reels, not real life. And success is often defined visually and externally. Vulnerability is still seen as weakness in many circles, and comparison is constant and unavoidable. So we're not just encouraged to perform, we're trained to. Do we all do it? The short answer is yes. To some degree, everyone filters themselves depending on context. You don't act the same way with your boss as you do with your closest mate, and that's normal. The issue isn't that we present different versions of ourselves. The issue is when the gap becomes too wide, the performance becomes exhausting, or the real self gets suppressed entirely. Authenticity isn't about being raw all the time or saying whatever you feel. It means your values and actions align. You're not pretending to be someone you're not. You're honest with yourself first, then others. You allow yourself to be seen, even if imperfectly. So, authenticity is less about exposure and more about alignment. Now, maintaining a polished, perfect public persona might seem harmless or even necessary, but over time it creates a quiet psychological strain. The bigger the gap between who you are and who you present, the more energy it takes to sustain the performance. And this often leads to chronic stress, emotional exhaustion, and a persistent sense of being found out. It leads to increased anxiety and self doubt. Psychologically, it can fuel imposter syndrome, where success feels undeserved because it's attached to a version of you that isn't fully real. Over time, this disconnect can erode self esteem. You're not being validated for who you are, but for who you're pretending to be. And there's also a relational cost. When people connect with your curated persona, those relationships can feel shallow or conditional, even if others don't realize it. You may find yourself holding back, avoiding vulnerability, or feeling strangely alone, despite being socially seen. In the long run, this can lead to identity confusion, losing clarity on what you actually think, feel, or value because you've spent so long managing perception. The risk isn't just that others don't know the real you, it's that you start to lose touch with it as well. The more you perform, the less you feel known. Being found out can feel like a sudden collapse of control. The carefully constructed version of self is exposed, and with it comes a rush of shame, fear, and vulnerability. Because so much effort has gone into maintaining the image, the reaction is often intense and protective. And some people may become defensive or dismissive, doubling down on the persona to regain control of how they're seen, where others might withdraw completely, avoiding situations or relationships where they feel exposed. In some cases, there's anger towards the person who uncovered them or towards themselves for not maintaining the facade. Underneath all these reactions, though, is usually the same core fear. If people see the real me, I won't be accepted. Ironically, this moment, while uncomfortable, can also be a turning point, offering an opportunity to step out of performance and into something more honest, if the person is willing to face it. Spotting a fake or overly curated persona isn't about catching someone out. It's about noticing patterns. Often there's a sense of inconsistency. Their words, actions, and values don't quite line up, or their story shifts depending on the audience. You might notice they present as flawless or always winning, rarely admitting mistakes or vulnerability. Conversations can feel surface level or rehearsed, like you're engaging with a performance rather than a person. There can also be a subtle emotional distance. Despite lots of sharing, nothing feels truly real. Your gut usually picks up on it first. Something feels slightly off, even if you can't immediately explain why. What to do about it is where people often go wrong. Calling it out directly can trigger defensiveness because that persona is usually protecting something deeper, a fear, an insecurity, or a need for approval. A better approach is to model authenticity yourself. Be genuine, grounded, and consistent in how you show up. Ask open, non threatening questions that invite depth rather than expose cracks. Over time, this can create a safer space for the other person to drop the mask even slightly. At the same time, keep your own boundaries clear. Don't overinvest in a relationship that feels one dimensional or inauthentic. You're not responsible for fixing someone's persona, but you can choose to engage in a way that encourages honesty while protecting your own sense of connection and trust. So, how can we be more authentic? One is to get honest with yourself. Ask, Where am I performing? Where am I hiding? 2. Align actions with values. Don't just say what matters, live it. 3 is share selectively, not strategically. Authenticity isn't oversharing, it's real sharing. 4 is to let go of universal approval. Not everyone has to like you. In fact, if everyone does, you're probably editing too much. And 5, practice small moments of truth. Because authenticity is built in small, everyday choices, not big declarations. So, how can you check if you're being authentic? Ask yourself, would I act this way if no one was watching? Am I trying to impress or express? Does this feel aligned or performative? If someone really knew me, would this match? These questions can help bring you back to center. Once again, I have a small weekly challenge for you. This week, I want you to notice the gap. Pick one area of your life, social media, work, or friendships, where you feel like you're presenting a polished version of yourself. Then ask, what am I leaving out? What am I trying to protect? What would a slightly more honest version of me look like here? Your challenge is simple. Close the gap by 10%. Not completely, not dramatically, just 10%. Say the honest thing. Show a little more of the real you. Drop one layer of the mask. Because authenticity isn't a leap, it's a series of small steps. As usual, there is a worksheet that accompanies this episode. Take your time with it. This isn't something to rush. Find a quiet space, remove distractions, and answer each question honestly. You don't need perfect answers, just real ones. This worksheet isn't about judging yourself, it's about understanding yourself. You might notice discomfort as you go through it. That's normal. It usually means you're getting close to something important. Revisit your answers at the end of the week and reflect on any changes you made, even small ones. At the end of the day, the goal isn't to tear down the version of you on the wall, it's to bring it closer to the person in the mirror. Because the closer those two become, the lighter you feel, the deeper your relationships grow, and the more at peace you are with yourself. You don't need to be perfect to be accepted. You just need to be real enough to be known. And that's where real connection and real growth begins. If you found this episode valuable, please share with somebody who might need to hear it or on your socials. If you want to reach out for more information, a copy of the worksheet, or want to share your story, you can email me at contact@thebetterhumansproject.com. Until next time, this is Greg Pfeiffer, and this is the Better Humans Project podcast. Let's keep building better humans together. Take care.